Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this white, blue and red or Jeskai colored spells deck built around Sokka, Tenacious Tactician, as voted on by my supporters on Patreon. This 4-mana 3/3 has Menace and Prowess, and other allies we control have those same two abilities. Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we get to make a 1/1 white ally creature token. So with Sokka in play, if we cast lots of cheap non-creature spells, we get to go wide, making an army of ally tokens, and all of those allies will also have Menace and Prowess, so by casting more non-creature spells, we get to pump them up and deal tons of damage. So our deck is essentially almost all non-creature spells and ways to cheaply trigger Sokka to get it going, draw some more cards, and win the game. So if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with a bit of mana acceleration. We've got a ton of 2-mana signets and talismans, so we can play Sokka ahead of schedule, and these all also of course count as non-creature spells, so they can also trigger Sokka and Prowess if we already have some tokens in play. Then we've got our card draw section, a lot of 1-mana cantrips. Those are effects that essentially replace themselves by drawing a card, maybe giving a bit of selection in the process, and then some more card draw engines that can also maybe trigger whenever a token enters the battlefield, so we can more consistently keep drawing more cards. Then we're also going to need some interaction, lots of cheap removal spells for opposing creatures and other non-land permanents, as well as some protection spells to protect Sokka. These also include a few counter spells, but we're keeping it pretty low on the amount of counter spells we have, because it's better to have more proactive spells we can cast in our own turn to trigger Prowess and Sokka, so we don't want to overload it on the amount of counter spells. And then we've got a few more cards that generate tokens whenever we're casting non-creature spells, so these can serve as a backup plan in case Sokka gets removed over and over, and they also just synergize well with the rest of the deck. And then a small miscellaneous section includes a few more anthem effects that can maybe pump up the team once we already made a few tokens. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration. They may have banned Chrome Mox, but we do still have Mox Amber, which is better usually with a cheaper commander, but it's still good enough here since we can play Sokka, immediately play Mox Amber to get a trigger, and ideally still have a mana up to cast another cantrip or maybe keep up a protection spell, so that can also work out very nicely. Springleaf Drum is pretty similar, don't get to cast it the same turn we play Sokka on curve, but we can play it beforehand, and then Sokka can tap to make a mana of any color, which can once again represent another cantrip or a protection spell. And then we've got all the signets and talismans, all the colored ones. I'm avoiding colorless ramp artifacts in this build, since we want to be able to cast lots of 1-mana cantrips, which we won't be able to play with colorless mana. And then the new Bender's Water Skin's also quite synergistic, since we do have a few instants throughout the deck, so this can make a mana of any color in our turn, and then we'll untap in the opponent's turn to make another mana once again. And then Relic of Legends can make a mana of any color, and we can also tap a legendary creature to do the same, so we can also maybe curve into Sokka and still tap Sokka himself to make another mana to keep things going. Then our cantrips include lots of blue ones, of course, with Brainstorm, which is perfect with all the shuffle effects that our fetch lands provide to put away unwanted cards. Similar is Ponder, can maybe keep one of the cards and then shuffle away the rest with a fetch land. We also have Consider, Opt. Peek is a relatively recent addition, can also look at the opponent's hand. There's Preordain, another new one, which is very powerful, scry 2 and then draw a card, and then a Sleight of Hand. Crash Through can give our creatures trample until end of turn, can also maybe set up a very nice attack. And then we move up the curve where we have Expressive Iteration, another very powerful card. And then at 3 mana we've got a few enchantments that can repeatedly draw cards. Caretaker's Talent, when a token enters, only triggers once each turn, but we can maybe cast an instant in the opponent's turn, triggering Sokka, in turn making a token which will draw a card with a talent once again. Same with Tokasia's Welcome, when a creature with mana value 3 or less enters, that also includes tokens. And Enduring Innocence, when a creature with power 2 or less enters, so that also counts all the ally tokens. Then we've got some good old-fashioned card draw with Stock Up, as well as Rediscover the Way, which is basically a stock up split over 2 turns, but on Chapter 3 can also give creatures double strike when we cast non-creature spells. And then a Whirlwind of Thought, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we now get to draw a card, also very powerful with all the other cantrips. And Treasure Cruise can maybe take advantage of a full graveyard, thanks to all the cantrips and fetch lands, so we can cheaply draw 3 cards. Then our removal includes Portable Hole and Seam Rip to deal with opposing non-land permanents with mana value 2 or less. Swords to Plowshares, one of the best removal spells in the game. Into the Floodmaw has a versatile bounce spell. Then in red we've got some burn spells with Fiery Impulse, can easily enable Spell Mastery to deal 3 to an opposing creature. Lightning Bolt, of course, is a much better version, as it can always deal 3 to any target. And then Torch to Tower, also quite good with all the random tokens and artifacts we can sacrifice to bargain to deal 3 if needed. We've got Get Lost, which can deal with creatures, enchantments, and planeswalkers alike. Cyclonic Rift, usually cast for 2 mana in this deck, but occasionally we can overload it. Then there's a Lightning Helix to deal 3 and gain 3. Rip Apart can deal 3 to a creature at sorcery speed, but can also deal with artifacts or enchantments. Prismari Command, another flexible card that can often deal with opposing artifacts. Then Flage isn't particularly synergistic with our commander, but it does take advantage of all the fetch lands and cantrips that naturally end up in the graveyard. And then a Chandra, another powerful card that can deal 4 to an opposing creature, but can also help us ramp by generating mana with a +1, so it can also make it easier to play Sokka and then play a bunch of spells afterwards. Then our protection category includes a few instants to protect Sokka specifically, giving it hexproof and indestructible in the case of Laurent's Escape. Can also protect our own artifacts for what it's worth. We also have Slip Out the Back to phase out a creature, give it a +1 counter, so that can also dodge opposing sweepers even if they're about to exile our stuff. Then we've got Stubborn Denial as a cheap counterspell for non-creature spells, and with Sokka in play we get to trigger Prowess. Sokka goes up to 4 power, so then Ferocious is enabled. We also have Swan Song to counter enchantments, instants, or sorceries. Wash Away, a cheap answer to an opposing commander, but can always cast it as a 3-mana counterspell. There's Redirect Lightning, a new addition, can maybe redirect a removal spell from the opponent that would target Sokka otherwise. Counterspell, just a nice 2-mana answer. And Lightning Greaves can also give our creature haste and shroud as a more permanent solution. Then our creatures include Snapcaster Mage, which can flash back some of our instants and sorceries from the graveyard. There's a lot of them to choose from. The Iconoclast can make 1/1 soldiers whenever we cast a non-creature spell, whereas the Monastery Mentor makes a 1/1 Prowess Monk token. And Sahili makes a 1/1 Servo tokens, can occasionally turn a Servo into a different artifact as well. Kaikar will make 1/1 Spirit tokens, which we can also sacrifice for a red mana if we'd like. And then Narset Enlightened Exile wants to be attacking to get back instants and sorceries from our graveyard. Also gives our creatures prowess, so with Sokka in play that's essentially double prowess. And Elspeth Stormslayer helps us go wide with additional 1/1 soldier tokens. Will also double the number of allies we get with Sokka, and can also fly over the team. And then finally, there's the Warleader's Call, pumping up our team, and whenever a creature enters, we get to deal 1 damage. Very good with our other token generators as well. Same with Frostcliff Siege, we'll often go for the Teamer mode, giving our team +1 power, trample, and haste, but we can also go for Jeskai in a grindier matchup to draw more cards. And finally, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, just an individually powerful card, still a non-creature spell, can also help us ramp with Shaman making treasure tokens, and can improve our hand looking for more cantrips to fuel Sokka. And then our mana base is mostly just mana fixing, a couple channel lands for added utility, those can come in handy. Can also use Crucible to good effect with our token synergies. Otherwise, a nice mix of check lands, Verge lands, there's the slow lands from Innistrad, as well as shock lands and surveil lands, which we can fetch up with our various fetch lands, even some of the off-color ones. So the mana base is pretty solid, also including Cavern of Souls, naming human to make those uncounterable. And yeah, otherwise, lots of solid mana fixing to make sure we can cast our spells when we want to. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is a bit on the slow side, facing Golbez, blue-black artifacts. I think I can do better. This is a slight improvement. So let's fetch. It's actually interesting here. Definitely need a red source. Could just get a tapped Triome. So I have double white for Elspeth. And blue to cast Sleight of Hand next turn. Sure. So I can Sleight of Hand first, maybe draw into another tapped land. Take the Verge. Keep up bolts. Haven't found any ramp cards yet, but turn 4 Chandra can maybe set up Sokka into another spell. Golbez at 4 toughness dodges Lightning Bolt, but we can use Seam Rip. Although the Siege would have been nice too. Still, I think, get rid of their commander. Hope to draw an untapped land for Chandra. And then we should be in decent shape. Alright, Synthesizer, that one's pretty scary. And I currently don't have an answer. Found the land. So I can go for Chandra, or I can play Sokka anyways, although there's a chance it does get removed. I guess a third option is Siege, keep a Bolt. Let's go for Chandra. May as well get 2 damage out of it. And now I'll have the mana for Sokka, plus more interaction. File triggers Simulacrum. And a draft. Okay. So, I assume Chandra makes mana, although I could also try and deal with a Construct in combination with a Lightning Bolt. This looks at mana value. I mean, I could also just start going wide with tokens, and that's one way to protect my Planeswalkers. Let's make mana. Play Elspeth. Make some tokens. And then still have Bolt available. And then next turn I get to maybe double the tokens from Sokka. Does not look like I'll be able to finish off the construct with a Lightning Bolt. Midnight Clock makes another 8/8 and a free Mirror Enforcer. Yeah, opponent's going off. I don't have any sweepers in my deck. So we just need to go wide enough with our tokens to keep up, which is going to be tough. At least they don't trample. Opponent is still keeping up a bunch of mana. They could have free cast their commander, so presumably they have a counterspell up. Portable Hole answers one of their tokens. Still gonna make mana. Play Sokka, and then I can still follow that up with Portable Hole and Lightning Bolt, or I could play the Siege. Start here. And that resolves. Play Portable Hole. Make more tokens. And then Bolt represents 2 more tokens as well. Opponent's channeling Takenuma. Does not get anything back. I could ultimate Chandra next turn, giving me an emblem to deal 5. Opponent's activating Fomori Vault, so they're maybe digging for another 3 mana artifact, perhaps. So yeah, maybe our tokens can still overpower this synthesizer. Mirror Enforcer's going face. Never mind, everyone at Elspeth. So I can finish off the Mirror Enforcer. And get 2 more tokens. And yeah, it's not inconceivable that I can win the game this turn. Chandra make mana versus emblem. I've got 3 cards in graveyard. Chandra would be 4, so then I can Treasure Cruise for 4 mana. Get 5 damage. I would need to find a few more cantrips here. Elspeth can also jump the team. I think I just go make mana, play Whirlwind, and then I can still play the Siege. Give my creatures haste. Our opponent does have a Metallic Rebuke to counter it, unfortunately. So how much damage is this? 4 tokens with 3 power. So that's 12 plus 5, 17. Yeah, Elspeth could make it lethal. Xaxes, awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Hei Bai, 5-color shrines. So we definitely want to get ahead and stay ahead, because the opponent's late game is going to overpower us. This hand is not the best way to do so. I do like Relic of Legends, can immediately tap Sokka for mana. Yeah, maybe it's okay. Would prefer to find a 2-mana ramp card, because the opponent's not super likely to remove Sokka if I play turn 3. And now I can look for a Surveil land. And I can hang on to my cantrips until after we deploy our commander. It is tempting to maybe peek at their hands before we decide when to cast Sokka, in case they do have some removal spell left. But yeah, for now, let's just get Archive Surveil. Stubborn Denials should be effective. Cannot counter their commander, but can counter their shrines. So this turn, play land pass, and then maybe... I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if I peek in their draw step or wait until end of turn. Alright, opponent's gonna Farseek. So now I can peek, and then determine whether or not I want to counter the Farseek here. Opponent's got removal, Yuri onto Flicker, Champion, Tracker. I think I do Stubborn Denial here, because I wouldn't be able to necessarily counter Journey on curve, so I would have to wait. I mean, I guess I can play Relic next turn, then my opponent plays Hei Bai, maybe? I think it's still worth it to slow them down. So this turn, I guess it's still Relic. Yeah, the Journey to Nowhere is the biggest issue. Opponent goes for Tapland Hierarch. So if I go for Sokka, I can still Expressive Iteration at least. And then if they want to go for Journey, their curve isn't ideal. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Ideally find a free spell I can cast, otherwise Rediscover in hand. And these will go to waste. Opponent goes for Hei Bai, so not prioritizing Journey. And they hit a good one, the Goshintai of Life's Origin. So that makes an extra shrine. But now we get to have some fun with Sokka, hopefully. Kick things off with Warleader's Call. And then I think I Sleight of Hand, because I might still find an answer to some of their creatures. I did not. Alright, in that case I probably still Rediscover, tapping Sokka. And hope to find more card draw effects to keep triggering prowess next turn. Alright, Water Skin will have to do. Hit you for 5. So I've built up enough mana where I can redeploy Sokka if they do remove it. Countering the Farseek is looking pretty good here. Opponent's somewhat limited in their options. Does decide to journey on Sokka. Back to the command zone. Don't have many disenchants I can hope to draw. And Brainstorm versus Elspeth. I mean, Elspeth goes pretty hard too here on this board. I can fly my tokens. And that would be, let's see, 4 times 3 is 12 damage. Making tokens with War Leader Skull is good too. Or I can go for Brainstorm and then replay Sokka. Cast Brainstorm, trigger Prowess a whole bunch. And even have a fetch line to shuffle. Can maybe even find another cantrip. Alright, that's gonna be worth a shot here. So play Sokka. Brainstorm, tapping Sokka. And any 1 mana spell will do here. And how about a Swords to Plowshares? So shuffle back a pair of lanes. Fetch. Plains is fine. Swords on probably the Goshintai. And smash. Opponent's at 1. Don't really see them coming back, and our opponent agrees. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Heliod, the Radiant Dawn. So blue-white, flash, lots of instants can be expected. We've got Signet, early Saheeli, 2 ways to protect Sokka. I think it's still good enough. This hand's looking for cheap cantrips to trigger Saheeli and Sokka and keep the cards flowing. And then phasing out is still good against the board wipe. Redirect Lightning can also hit a counter spell, I suppose, so could do worse. Don't need another land, but now I won't be able to fetch up Steam Vents anymore. Opponent's setting up their defenses. Stock up isn't bad. So let's get a red duel, which I guess leaves Sacred Foundry now. Scalding Tarn can at least still fetch basic island or mountain, so it's better to use the off-color fetches to get your dual lands and then leave the on-color fetches to get your basics. Skyclave Relic. So this seems like a good window for Saheeli. Wait another turn to play Sokka with protection backup. And I still have Stubborn Denial up for what it's worth. If I don't need to cast it, I get to fetch up a Triome or another Surveil land. So Heliod a 4/4. Return Enchantment, that isn't a god, to your hand, so could get back the Saga here. Ooh, Elspeth Conquers Death would be incredibly effective here, but we've got just the right answer. And sure, let's get Hallowed Fountain just to have perfect mana. Basic Island probably would have been fine. Okay, so now play Sokenzan, Sokka into Springleaf Drum. And that still leaves up Redirect Lightning and Slip Out the back. And then Stock Up is the perfect way to refuel. Heliod resolves. Can get back Elspeth Conquers Death. Redirect Lightning can also redirect abilities, so still good against Conquer's Death. Take my turn, and how about a Treasure Cruise? That's also where the fetch lanes come in handy. So can probably afford to tap a token here. Start with a stock up. Get a bunch of triggers. Crash through and brainstorm, both fine. So the only drawback of casting Crash Through is I would be tapped out of Redirect Lightning. So maybe I do start just with a Brainstorm here. Haven't played a land yet either. Fetch land would be ideal. Did not find a fetch land, but a Consider ain't bad. So with a Consider I can get rid of one card that I don't necessarily want to draw. All these cards are good, to be honest, but maybe Chandra is a little pricey. So we can get rid of her, and then draw into the Siege afterwards. So do I Consider now? I guess I do. Or I can attack first. Could also keep up both Slip Out the Back and Redirect Lightning, which is maybe safer. And then end of turn I can still Consider. Also can't forget about Saheeli's Minus ability if we need additional mana from our Signet, for instance. I could turn a Servo into it. Alright, Heliod's about to transform. Can cast spells as though they had Flash. And their spells get a discount for each card your opponent has drawn this turn. Actually quite punishing against all our card draw effects we have in hand. Alright. I think end of turn I'm still gonna Consider, even though it discounts their spells. Don't think I need Chandra. But the Siege will do nicely. Alright, I guess our opponent can Conquer's Death at instant speed, but guess what? We can redirect it to Saheeli instead. Because yeah, this does specifically say target an opponent controls, so we couldn't redirect it to Heliod, unfortunately. But I think we'll be just fine. Play Relic into Siege, into whatever else we need to close out the game. Oh yes. Can still tap a Servo for Crash Through, or maybe better yet, we can Treasure Cruise to draw 3 and attack for approximately 1,000,000 damage. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Liliana of the Dark Realms, mono black. Yeah, can expect a lot of removal, so it's gonna be tough for Iconoclast and Sokka to survive. But I do like the War Leader's Call, so we still get some damage out of our creatures, even if they're about to get removed. For now we can Surveil opponent ramps. I could also rip apart Cold Steel Heart to slow them down. Could be reasonable. Let's get a Parlor. Aloran's Escape seems good as a way to protect my creatures. So yeah, then I don't mind rip apart now. Next turn Iconoclast with Lauren's Escape backup. Opponent's gonna draw 2. If they have a removal spell end of turn, they'll still have an efficient turn cycle, but nope. So we'll see how eager they are to deal with the Iconoclast. They did have a sorcery speed, Bloodchief's Thirst. Cavern of Souls, not strictly necessary. And Undercity Plunder makes me discard. I was gonna curve Signet into Rediscover, which would mean get rid of the War Leader's Call. Maybe that's still okay, because I would rather refuel with Rediscover. And then I'll have the mana to be able to deploy Sokka and immediately trigger it. I will not discard a second card. Make sure the mana still works here. Now the opponent's deck could easily have some board wipes to deal with all my tokens. If not, I probably want Monastery Mentor here. So there's Liliana. It's gonna search up a swamp, which means I can pressure Liliana and take her out, unless they have a removal spell left. Alright, Chandra's perfect. Give me a threat that doesn't die to a board wipe. So, could go for Sokka, but that seems like just asking to get swept up. So instead I'll go Chandra, question whether or not I play the Signet. Because Signet could give someone double strike and counts as another prowess enabler. Yeah, I think I still play the Signet out. Play Chandra. Chandra's just gonna deal 2 damage. And then afterwards I can surveil.
I'm a survivor.
And look for more cheap cantrips. Springleaf Drum's not super exciting. Yeah, at this point I'm just looking for more card draw. Right, Vraska, that's fine. So yeah, maybe they don't have a sweeper yet. One has to assume. And that's perfect here. A great way to refuel. I'll still need additional non-creature spells to go with it, ideally. But let's see here. I can go Mentor into Whirlwind, or I can Whirlwind plus Chandra and then hope to hit something spicy. Could also make mana, to be fair, and go Sokka into Whirlwind. Maybe that's better.
Today's my lucky day.
And give our commander a chance. And then give double strike to Iconoclast, I guess. Iconoclast goes face, tokens at Vraska, perhaps. Okay. Did you draw a board wipe? You did. Alright, that'll reset our entire board. Back to the command zone. Still have a Monastery Mentor to repopulate. Could also start with Sokka, keep up Redirect Lightning. I think I go Mentor, and then hopefully cast a non-creature spell off the top. So I can also trigger Whirlwind. Just a land. Now I can Emblem Chandra next turn, opponent's at 10, so it doesn't take much to cross the finish line. The only problem here with the Redirect Lightning is that there's no other creature to redirect it onto. So if they just play a removal spell, there's not much I can do about it. I could still cast it just to trigger the Mentor and make a Monk token. Don't know if that's worth it. I guess it would still draw with Whirlwind. So maybe it is, or I can save it to trigger Chandra. And Davriel. So that could be a lot of different things depending on the offers they get. Opponent's gonna draw 3. Their creatures are smaller. Seems like a fair compromise. Opponent wants to drown. Again, there's no other creature to redirect onto, because I can't redirect onto the Monk token since it doesn't exist yet. Yeah, I'll let that slide. Davriel also proliferates. Torch a Tower can answer Davriel. So the emblem seems decent here. Can go Emblem, play Sokka, Torch, sack one of my artifacts, finish off Davriel, and my opponent's very close to dead.
There's no problem fire can't solve.
Sack the Signet. Chandra goes face, opponent's at 1. Only alive thanks to the interplanar beacon. Ooh, opponents got their own redirect lightning. What a blowout. But they had to pay 5 life, so we still dealt 5 to them in a way. So yeah, they got the redirect lightning from that earlier Undercity plunder. Lightning bolt seems like a pretty good way to end it. That rail's gone. Alright, opponent at 1 life. Good luck beating the emblem. And Necrodominance. Alright, opponent's gonna go out on their own terms, perhaps. And the Avarice. Alright, GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Hama, the Bloodbender. 5 mana, 3/3. When it enters, mill 3. Then can exile up to 1 non-creature non-land card. And then they can cast it, waterbending in the process. Yeah, will be pretty decent against us. My hand's not bad. Have some early interaction, a bit of ramp, some card draw. And slip out the back to protect my creature from removal. I see opponents maybe more of a dedicated mill deck. So yeah, for going wide with tokens, we're also playing into the opponent's Mesmeric Orb. And Bruvak's gone, can double the mill effect. And now Teferi's Tutelage. Okay, so just need to avoid getting combo killed by some of the 2 cards infinite mill combos, or mill your entire deck combos, I should say. And then still trying to apply enough pressure to get the game over with before their synergies mill me out. Might want to fetch while I still can. I'm hesitant to play Sokka here, since it's going to be exposed to removal. Instead I can play Tokasia's Welcome, and then I guess Portable Hole answers the Mesmeric Orb just fine. Let's just get a Steam Vents. I don't think my life total is going to matter too much. Now I did deplete some of my cheap non-creature spells. Could have maybe saved Portable Hole to play after I play Sokka, but then I would also be shields down on slip out the back. So Tutelage mills when the opponent draws. Can always hit it with a Get Lost. But for now, let's get our commander in play. That resolves. If my opponent taps out, I can always decide to just slip out the back to get a trigger and a card draw. Ooh, Urza. Yeah, that's a problem. So they do seem to have a pretty big artifact sub-theme, which makes sense when you consider the water bending also lets you tap artifacts. So they essentially still have 4 mana available. So we have a few options. Can try and get Kaikar in play first, or I can just go Signet into Get Lost on Urza and get that out of the way, while still keeping up slip out the back. Could consider using Get Lost in their turn, so I get another Tokasia's Welcome trigger. That seems reasonable. Could also attack if they double block. I've got Iganjo I can channel. Opponent takes it. So in upkeep, I've got an effect. Opponent can maybe use the relic. So that's gonna keep that tap down, that's okay. So upkeep, Get Lost, leaving up, slip out the back. Make a token, draw off Tokasia's Welcome. Opponent did have a counter spell in hand as it turns out, but I'll still get my token. And And now a backup removal spell is maybe worth casting. Yeah, I guess I can wait, because it's not like our opponent's got a ton of extra mana with Urza here. Just a 1 artifact token they can tap for a blue. If I wait, I get to go Kaikar, Swords, Urza, get 2 triggers. Fraying Sanity. Okay, that's a scary one. So it's gonna double the mill effects, so that plus an effect that mills half of my library could be game over. Alright, so step 1, Mox Amber is also reasonable, although let's start with Kaikar, making sure to tap the Signet because it can be annoying sometimes. So Mox Amber would trigger all my stuff. So once again I could wait on Swords for Urza, or I could try and get to game over with. Although it feels like next turn I'll probably be able to attack with everyone. May still want to preordain in case I can draw into a counter spell to stop a big mill card. Consider Fable. I guess I should have a look at my graveyard as well to see what's already gone. Yeah, I don't think any of these are strictly necessary. Although Consider would be fine just as another cantrip. Alright, so can still play a land. Attack. Opponent takes it. And then next turn, hopefully it's not too late. Cavern on Human. Maybe our opponent spins the wheel with Urza. It's gonna be Spirit Water Revival. So they get to draw. Alright, that seems fine. Does trigger Tutelage a bunch, but not enough for it to be lethal with the Fraying Sanity. So this same amount will get milled again end of turn with a Sanity, but I'm pretty sure we can present 15 damage here. So I guess I can Consider now, and then I can Swords in my turn to trigger Prowess a bunch. And our opponent scoops it up onto the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the First Sliver. Never know what you're gonna get with the First Sliver. Could be 5-color good stuff, could be some sort of Cascade combo deck, or actual slivers. Some people still play those. Our hand is lacking cheap cantrips for Sokka, don't have any early ramp. Chandra's good against a 5-color good stuff pile, since they tend to have some sweepers, but I think I can do better. Even though Flage with 2 fetch lands isn't bad. This is a little bit more promising, I think. Especially for up against actual slivers, than having Torture Tower's nice. Still need a few more lands. A 3rd land for Waterskin gets us to Sokka. Now I could keep up Swan Song. I should probably cycle Crash Through. And now I could fetch basic islands. Sure. Otherwise I'll wait. Iteration's a good one to cast, if I can still play a land with it. Or I can go for the Waterskin, which keeps up Swan Song. That seems fine too. Get an extra red source. Our opponent did shock in the Blood Crypt, so they might have their own instant they want to cast. Our opponent cycles. So yeah, this is the Monstrous Vortex Cascade combo deck, basically. They want to cascade into the monster's vortex with the First Sliver, and then if they cast any of their expensive creatures, they will trigger the vortex, and their deck is built in such a way that they're guaranteed to find every other creature in the deck pretty much, and win the game on the spot, since some of those creatures can also give the team haste. And yeah, Swan Song can counter enchantments, so that should be the perfect solution. So I can play Sokka into Mox Amber, don't really expect any cheap removal spells. And then Waterskin also untaps for what it's worth. Could consider casting Torture Tower just to trigger Sokka and make another token. Our opponent's plotting a card here, so next turn they can cascade into the Vortex, and with a plotted card immediately combo off without giving us another turn. At least that's their plan. Yeah, let's just torch without bargain, but I could bargain just for the scry, but there's nothing I want to sacrifice. Take my turn, and then now War Leader's Call into Iteration looks great. With the Waterskin, I'll still have a mana up for Swan Song. And we're also presenting a ton of damage here. And found a land, so I'll take a Brainstorm. Sadly, it doesn't cast my cantrips here, but that's okay. Hit you for 14. And the Bender's Waterskin is going to make the difference. Ooh, they had the Monster's Vortex in hand even. Well, that's getting countered. And yeah, that should be game over, since their deck doesn't really function without it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Felothar, so an Abzan sacrifice deck. My hand is decent. Even have a Lightning Bolt to maybe deal with Felothar before it grows. Probably okay to start with tapped Steam Vents, turn to Signet. Can expect some removal, so may not want to play Sokka until we can immediately trigger it. But that's also where the extra mana from Signet and the treasure token could come in handy. Haywire Might would be an answer to the Signet, unless I decide to bolt it. Or we can let them spend the mana answering the Signet. Close call. Maybe I should just let it slide. They don't even have green at the moment. A Wriggling Grub is next. So this is perfect. I get to play Fable and keep up a Bolt. So if they play Felothar, we have an answer. Actually gonna tap the Signet just in case something goes wrong with it. And did they find green mana in the meantime? They did. Momentum Breaker. Okay. Gets rid of my Shaman token, so our opponent's taking it slow. So now I maybe regret not dealing with the Haywire Might first. Because now they could sack it in response. That's alright. They're gonna deal with a Fable. Fair enough. So I get to play Sokka and keep up Lightning Bolts. Fine to fetch a mountain. And then next turn, hopefully, we get to keep going with Preordain, string together more cheap spells. Botanical Brawler is next. That one I could still Fiery Impulse. And an Aristocrat, so I will respond. I guess we did get their speed up this way. That's fine. Brawler down. Aristocrat can sack the grub to make a pair of 1/1s. Start with Preordain. Don't need more lanes. Crash through is nice. And a sleight of hand. Yeah, I think I go for it. I'll still be able to bolt Felothar. This can gain protection, so they can double block and technically soak up some damage that way. Sack the grub. If they want to do that, that's fine. And then Kaikar overlaned. Okay. Pretty healthy attack here for 10. Got Menace and Trample. Can answer Felothar the moment it hits the battlefield. At which point they could sack it in response to the Aristocrat, I suppose. And our opponent scoops it up. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Sorin Markov, mono black. The ability to put someone to 10 life is pretty strong in a format where you start out on 25 life. This hand is decent. Lawrence Escape will be useful against mono black since they likely have removal for my commander. For now we can surveil. Don't need more fetch lanes. Polluted Delta can get white mana. And then play one of my talismans. I guess I can get a Plains 2 here. Next turn, play the Water Skin, most likely. I don't want to tap out for Sokka and not have Lawrence Escape up. Opponent also ramping nicely with a Worn Power Stone. Kaikar, another creature. So we do have a couple options here. I am lacking some card draw at the moment. So maybe I should surveil with a Polluted Delta. And look for some more cantrips or bigger card draw effects. Opponent can run out Sorin. Possible they're worried about a counterspell. Ooh, a Liliana. That one's good too.
Let us march into. I am the master here.
Make a zombie.
Necromancy is a lot like plucking turnips.
I'll let us surveil. Don't need more lanes. And a Preordain. So I could go Sokka into Preordain and then still definitely have Lawrence Escape up. The Water Skin also gets to untap here, which goes wide enough to deal with a -4 from Liliana. Yeah, that seems like a fine starting point. Get rid of lands. I need cheap spells. That's a cheap spell. Could bounce the Power Stone back, or we can just bounce Liliana herself as well. Bouncing Power Stone leaves Liliana, but I can maybe pressure and finish off Liliana next turn depending on what happens. Versus bounce Liliana, opponent has to replay it. I do give them a fish. Yeah, I guess I can upkeep bounce Liliana. And then I still have Lawrence Escape up. And a fish doesn't get in the way. They might pivot and cast something else. Perfect. So if this works, we would be pretty far ahead. And a Fiery Impulse is fine as another cheap non-creature spell. Sokka is safe. Liliana of the Veil does not line up very well here.
When
Just gets rid of a token.
you're telling me what you know about the Raven. One of your friends has to
And now we
leave.
can leverage all the extra tokens we're about to generate. So let's see, can I go Kaikar into Siege? I can, and then still have Impulse available thanks to the Water Skin. And then the question is Haste versus drawing extra cards. I might just want to get the game over with, hope they don't have a board wipe, and then Trample and Haste seems decent. Could even use Kaikar, Sank the Spirit, cast the Impulse. Opponent's at 24. Maybe should have thought about this a little bit more. I'm pretty sure I actually do have lethal if I just cast another spell here. But I should have done so main phase so my tokens could have attacked. Now it's maybe a little late. Alright, so probably missed an opportunity. Do I still have lethal if I go face? Yeah, because I would have to sank the spirit. So, don't have lethal anymore. Would have had lethal if I just sank the spirits, cast Impulse, clear the zombie, and then get 2 more tokens, which also have haste and can attack, as well as triggering prowess. Now I could still lose to a board wipe. Liliana is not going to be a problem. Yeah, forgot about Kaikar's secondary ability here. So I can lose 2 creatures.
Give me strength.
Opponent gets to draw, but they seem very dead here.
You quite and yours will be a fate worse than undead.
I can also channel Crucible, and those tokens pumped by Siege are still quite impactful. So we got to see this Jeskai spells deck in action. And yeah, it's definitely very powerful if you can keep Sokka in play and cast lots of your cheap cantrips to trigger it over and over. The deck of course relies pretty heavily on its commander, so if the opponent can counter it or remove it before we got a ton of value, it can be a little slow to get back on the board, so it is somewhat vulnerable in that way. But if the opponent does not have the right answers, or maybe you have your own protection spells to fight back, then Sokka can take over in just a turn or 2. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.